one thing with flight prices is I try and rack up my my airline points, so then you can just fly on airline.
That's a good one. Another travel hack, if you guys don't know about Sky Scanner, they have pretty cheap prices. And they're like student discounted, but you don't have to show proof that you're a student.
Also,
I've used Skyscanner.
Also Skiplagged is like this company where they like show you like basically the cheapest route with like a layover like in a certain spot that makes it like way less expensive, but you can't really check bags that way. But
yeah, I actually used Skiplag. When I went to Chicago for New Year's, we used Skiplag. So we had like a flight to, I don't know, like Michigan or something, and there was a layover in Chicago, and we just got off on the layover, and it was cheaper to fly that way.
yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and jump on in. So thank you, Nimra and Hannah. So thank you all for attending our event and for being flexible with us pushing back our date. I'm Natalie. I am the founder and CEO of Sky Society, and sprinkled within the room, we have some of our accelerator graduates who have helped host this event. So we have Nimra, Hannah, Samantha, Claudine, and Catherine here today. So those are some of our graduates. You guys want to wave and say hi? So they helped put on this event, but we're gonna have a lot to go through today. So we're gonna go quickly. So we're gonna start off by talking about ChatGPT and how to use it for resume optimization and cover letters. So I'm going to go through that quickly. And then we're going to jump into talking about portfolios, how to build a marketing portfolio. I'm going to show you some samples and hopefully give you some good tips for that. And then we're going to end by talking about travel. So stick around with those like Skiplag and Skyscanner websites, so you guys can like add those to our discussion. For each of the of our topics today, I'm going to talk about them for about 15 minutes. I will leave 5 minutes for questions, and then we're going to do 10 minutes of speed networking. So essentially, you guys get put in rooms, you get to meet other women in Sky Society, and then attend the event. And then we'll go back into talking about a topic for 15 minutes, 5 minutes of Q&A, 10 minutes of networking. All set? Sound good? Okay, so before I jump in and give you all of that, if you don't know, Sky Society, we are an educational media company for women in marketing. So we do a ton of stuff all around empowering women. If you're not already, make sure you join our LinkedIn group. I think most of you are in our LinkedIn group, but we post a lot of our events about that. We have about 5,000 women in it, and it's all just women in marketing, just like you, who want to connect, learn, and grow. So definitely check that out if you're not into it. But we'll go ahead and start with ChatGPT. Okay, so if you haven't already heard of this, I feel like this has been all over. But if you guys are on TikTok, TikTok's been talking about it. It's been all over the news of just how fast it's growing. And today I'm going to talk about it specifically within implications for resumes and job applications and cover letters. So if you don't know what it is, it's a type of AI that it's a conversational AI that you can communicate with that will essentially give you answers and support similar to that you would receive almost with like a chat person on support. So it's a language-based AI, meaning that you can communicate with it in order to similar to like a Siri or a Alexa, but the difference here is that you could actually kind of teach it stuff about yourself and communicate, and based on what you tell it, it'll give you different outputs. So you can essentially train it to learn more about you, to get more personalized responses. Whereas if you like ask an Alexa question, it's going to give the same answer to every single person that asks it. Where with ChatGPT, you could personalize it to you and get really custom responses, which comes in really, really handy when we're talking about resumes, cover letters, and all of our application materials. Okay, so 3 things that are important about ChatGPT. The first is that it's conversational dialogue. So it remembers the thread in your chat, and it uses previous questions and answers to inform next responses. So you literally converse with it like a human. One thing to know is that it has a limited database, so it's not connected to the internet. It essentially has all the information of the internet, but it's not connected. So it's not going to be the best when it comes to giving you like live or like news responses. And then the last thing is prompt engineering. So we're going to spend the most amount of time. Basically, like the best results you get from using this AI is based on what you tell it. So you have to know how to communicate with it in order to get really good responses. Because if you just go into it and you say, write me a cover letter, it's not going to give you a good response. Instead, you want to show it how to write you a custom cover letter for a job based on you and your experiences. So going into the art of prompt engineering. Sounds scary, but it's really, really simple. So essentially, this is kind of how we're going to structure our responses. Before I jump into this, I'm actually just going to show you guys what it looks like. If you have used ChatGPT, you can let me know in the chat. I don't know how many of you guys are familiar or have used it before. It's free to use. Oftentimes, it's like very hard to get in, but it's nice. Like during the working hours, it's typically pretty difficult. But you can ask ChatGPT like literally anything. So you can say, write me a follow-up email for a job application. What is a and it'll write you a follow-up email for your application. You could ask it to tell me a joke about marketing. Why did the marketer refuse to go skydiving? Because he didn't want to test the market's potential of a sudden drop. Guess that's a medium joke. We could say, tell me another joke. Why did the SEO expert cross the road to get to the first page of Google search results? So funny little dad jokes, but basically you can ask it anything just like you're communicating with a human. But yeah, definitely you could think of it for job responses too. You could say, write me a LinkedIn connection message to a hiring manager. Pretty cool, right? You can see how it can save us a lot of time. So these are very, very basic prompts. Well, what we're asking ChatGPT, right? Write me a LinkedIn connection message to hiring manager. We're not being specific. So now what I'm going to talk a little bit about is how to be more specific with your with what you tell ChatGPT to do. Okay, so the first is you're going to tell it, I want you to act as, and you're going to insert, I want you to act as an advertiser, a digital marketer, a college student, a hiring manager, whatever you want it. This is going to set the stage for what comes next and contextualize your prompt. Then you're going to tell ChatGPT what you're going to do. I will give you my resume. So you're defining your relationship. And then you will write me a cover letter. You will write me a follow-up email. You will write me a sales pitch, whatever it is. All right. So we're saying, I want you to act as blank. I'm going to do this. You're going to do this. And then we lay out our request. So what we want it to do. So this is an example of me asking it to write me a sales pitch. We could ask it to write us a cover letter, whatever we want. And then we're going to lay out what our request is. So some cool things that we could do with ChatGPT, because it's conversational, once it gives us a response, we could adjust it. So let's say it wrote us an email, but we didn't really like the email. I could say, make it more professional. Or I could say, it sounds too robotic. Or if it was too long, I could say, make it 20% shorter, or make the word count 500. I could tell ChatGPT to be more specific. Like you can like really, really think, and you only get what you ask from it. So you want to be as specific as you possibly can. And then also it does remember your conversation. So if you want to forget your earlier conversation, you have to tell it. But just remember that it's meant to be conversational. So one example, I want you to act as a writing editor. I will provide you a paragraph. I want you to rewrite it several times with different styles of writing in a table format. So let's say that you are at a job and you're working on a blog post and you're stuck on this one paragraph. This is a prompt that you could tell ChatGPT to rewrite it several different times in different styles of writing, so you have multiple options to choose from. I want you to act as a digital marketer. I will give you a job description and my resume. You will write me a persuasive cover letter customized to the job description that is between 400 and 500 words. You will focus on my previous work experience and transferable skills. So this is one that I hope you all take away if you do want to use ChatGPT. Because this was so much more specific than saying, I want you to write me a cover letter. right? So here we're saying, I want you to act as a digital marketer. Or let's say that you are applying to a marketing coordinator role. You could say, I want you to act as a marketing coordinator. I will give you the job description on my resume. You will write me. And here I put persuasive cover letter. You could put creative cover letter. You could, change this adjective. I specified that I want it to be customized to the job description. And I specified that I want it to be between 400 and 500 words. You will focus on my previous work experience and transferable skills. You could tell it to focus on whatever you want. You could say, I want you to focus on my experience at blank company, or I want you to focus on my social media experience, or I want you to focus on my leadership capabilities. So you can mess around with it. And again, once it delivers you a response, you could say, or you can even add a thing here, like give me 3 versions, or give me 3 versions in different writing styles. So you can even be more specific once we get here. Okay, a similar one for resumes. Rewrite the work experience on my resume to include keywords from the job description. You will not make any bullet point longer than 16 words. Provide an explanation on which keywords from the job description you added for each work experience. So this is a prompt that you could give it if you wanted to help you rewrite the bullet points on your resume. Again, I think these are kind of the 2 most useful that I find. And for both of these, if you're having a conversation at this point, ChatGPT should already know about your resume and your work history. So this is what you could do to help it rewrite your resume bullet points. So this is an example that I went through when I chatted with ChatGPT. So you can see at the top here, I want you to act as a digital marketer. I will give you a job title, job description, resume. You will write me a cover letter. So I gave it a job title. I copy and pasted the job description from LinkedIn. And then over here, I copy and pasted a resume. This is the rest of the resume. And then it wrote me a cover letter here, based off of the specific experience from my resume and based off of the job description. So instead of spending an hour having to write this, ChatGPT can make it for you instantly, which is really, really awesome. A couple things to note though. This is super new. So right now, if you do this, it's very unlikely that a hiring manager would probably catch it, but people can put these responses through AI detectors that could say, this was likely written by AI. So you can take the risk now. It's so new that probably companies aren't checking, but that is a risk that it's if a company's checking, they can know that it's written by AI. So you could also use this as a starting point and then customize it and add your own human touch. But I would also encourage you to kind of mess around with the prompts so that way you could figure out what works best for you. If they wrote this, you could tell it, be more casual, be funnier, be more professional, include more numbers, whatever. Or you could tell ChatGPT, like, give me an explanation of why you wrote it this way so you could see like what its thought process is. But yeah, this is kind of how I see it being really helpful for you guys in your job applications. I'll open it up to any questions that you guys have. You can put them in the chat or you can unmute yourself.
I have a question. I think since ChatGPT has kind of become known, it's like a huge buzz in the community right now, especially like in the marketing community about how it can benefit us. But something that I often think about is like the potential threat per se that it could pose on marketing in the future. And I'm not necessarily like, I don't know what the answer could be, but maybe some questions that I've had going through my mind is like, could this potentially like decrease our job security, especially for us content writers who where companies rely on us to like write creatively and produce press releases. I saw people in the comments also say that like they've been testing that out for their content writing assets and ideations. And so I think one thing that I've been thinking about a lot is like, will companies one day say, well, why do I need to hire like 4 or 5 marketers or content writers when I can hire 2 that are using ChatGPT, right? So do you think that ChatGPT could potentially like put our job security at risk?
Yeah, I love that question. And it's such a huge debate. I think it's going to put other industries at risk before marketing. I think that the industries more at risk are more customer service. Chat is going to be more at risk because, like I mentioned before, Google will now I'll use like SEO, for example. When you publish a blog post, Google can easily now probably add a feature to their algorithm where they can scan content and say, oh, this is written by AI. We're not going to prioritize it or show it. So I think, but there's also kind of a fear that right now within content, when we publish content on Google, right, we're used to clicking through blog posts, but Google, like the future can change where like maybe we don't search things that way anymore. Maybe we just go straight to ChatGPT, right? We don't need to go to Google and search for something and read through a blog post. Instead, we could just ask ChatGPT and get an answer right away. I think that in SEO, like that is a potential in the future of just like how we search things is going to be different. We've already seen it change with TikTok, of like people are going more towards wanting to watch TikTok videos when they're searching for things like recipe ideas or travel destinations. So I do think there's a risk, but I also think that good marketing cannot be replaced by AI. Like, I think it can be a very useful tool to help, but I've watched and I've heard some of the more like elite or leadership marketers talk about it, and they're like, I have this one person that I really look up to in marketing, and he was saying, is like, I hope my competitors use ChatGPT to write their marketing copy, because then I'm just going to beat them, because it's not going to be able to take in the human consideration that we take in as marketers when we are crafting effective copy. So much goes into that, and I don't think that can be replaced immediately by ChatGPT. But I do think we will see an impact. I just don't know exactly where yet. But it's a really good discussion and debate.
Yeah, no, I think that's such a good point. And I think about too, when automated customer service became a thing and everybody was scared that like it was going to ruin the customer service industry. But at the end of the day, you can tell when you're being assisted by a real person and when you're being assisted by a bot, and it makes the world of a difference. So I hope that marketers will be able to leverage ChatGPT as a tool to also work faster and more productively, and that it'll just like become an enhancement to our everyday responsibilities. So I totally agree.
Yeah, and I think, because I'm friends with some people that work at some of the bigger AI companies, and their main area like they're focusing on right now is definitely the chat like support area, because I think that's like more easily, I mean, we'll see, like AI has evolved so much. I don't know if, does anyone remember when Siri like first came out, like, and it could do like, it was like, it did nothing, but it was the coolest thing ever. I feel like that's kind of a route with ChatGPT where like, it's still so new. It's still so new that we really don't know where it could go.
Yeah, Siri had us in a chokehold. So
Yeah.
I'm curious to see where ChatGPT takes us.
Any other questions?
It's not a question, I just have a comment, but I think that ChatGPT will be able to kind of take, I guess, take away the more mundane tasks in marketing, so that it will leave people with more time for creativity and to be able to like actually do more creative things, as opposed to like focusing on all these like little mundane tasks. And so I think hopefully it can transition to that way of being like just useful for these little small tasks that take up your day, and so it gives you more time to be creative and, you know, do the stuff that you like and why we like marketing.
I love that, Hannah. Yeah, especially even things like emails. I think so now, if you guys use Canva has an AI tool. If you go to their docs, it can now help you write like Instagram captions, and it can definitely, or, you know, help you write your first draft of your email template. And so I definitely see that maybe being like the first big step that it takes. And yeah, Notion too. Right, Jane? Everyone's coming out with their own version of it. It's crazy. Okay, well, we're gonna do a quick round of speed networking. Oh wait, I have a couple. So you guys can stick and chat about ChatGPT, but I'll put you in small breakout rooms so you could talk with each other about what your career goals are. If you have any other job application hacks, I know we talked about ChatGPT as a potential like hack, but these are some 2 question prompts. I will put you in breakout rooms. I'll probably switch you up. I don't know if, okay, I'm going to just put you in once because I don't think we'll have time to switch it up, but I'll put you in breakout rooms and then I'll bring you back and we'll talk about portfolios. Let's do. All right, I'll bring you back in about 5 or 6 minutes. All right, everybody, welcome back. Make sure I got everyone in here. We're gonna switch and transition into talking about marketing portfolios. So let's get into it. Okay. So I'm going to talk today about marketing portfolios, most specifically in Canva. So after this event, we'll send out a recap email and I will email you some of the templates that we're going through today. But one of a huge thing I'm an advocate of is building marketing portfolios as a way to showcase your experience. I think if you're looking to stand out in your job applications, this is the best way to do it. So if you have a marketing portfolio already, I'll give you some tips and tricks. If you don't have one, I will give you a place to get started. So the reason why portfolios are so important is because portfolios, a resume tells the world what you do, a portfolio shows how you do it. So in a resume, you're talking about your work experience, you're listing your qualifications, your accomplishments, but in a portfolio, you really get to show and demonstrate to an employer what you've done. And I think within marketing, it is so important because marketing is typically such a creative space. And a lot of the work that you're doing is very visual. And so showing a visual representation of what you've done allows an employer to really get a good vision of the type of content that you would create if you were to work for them. So this is an example of a template that we have in kind of the format I like to go through. I'm talking about this in terms of slides, of like a 10-slide Canva, but you could also think of this as if you were doing a website portfolio. So for the Canva slides, having an intro of just, the cover to your portfolio, having an about me section. I really like listing, and I have all of our accelerator graduates do this, listing your certifications and software skills, because I think that a lot of times marketers focus a lot on the creative, and I think that the technical side is just as important. And then doing a table of content with all your featured work, and then going through and talking about your work. You could talk about how a page for all your social media work, a page for all your influencer marketing work, your email marketing, your virtual events, or whatever it is. And you could have visual examples of all of your work. And then the last being a contact page. So for your about me, I have a couple examples. I will send this again. I will send you guys this deck so you'll have it. These are some of our accelerator graduates, but keeping it short, I have all of them use a present, past, future. So what you're currently doing now, what you've done before, and what you want to do in the future. So here are a couple of examples of different ways you could do your about section. Typically include a photo of yourself. This one's Tammy. She's in this graduating class. Okay, so then you have your about section. Then we go into your work examples. So for your work examples, we're trying to stick with visuals as much as possible while also kind of giving some contextual experience. So this is one example. Here's another one kind of going through objective, process, results. So she focused on talking about her objective with each campaign, what the process was that she did, and her results. So having it visual, but also keeping a focus on numbers as well. And then if you have multiple companies that you want to talk about, this is also a good way you could do it, where you categorize it by company. So for this example, she did Conquer the Digital Empire, wrote what she did there, and then for Sky Society and wrote what she did there, and then had visuals. You don't need to fit all of your visuals on the page. You can link out to it. So don't feel like everything needs to be cluttered. You definitely want to feel like it has space, and include as much as you can, but if you can also link things, and each of these were clickable as well, where you could go and click on them and be taken to the full piece of content. Email marketing, so here's another example. So you can see each of these are in their own unique style. You could choose whatever style best expresses and represents you. And then skills and certifications. So these are a couple examples of including certifications and also including all the softwares that you have previous experience with. I think this is also really important in marketing because it allows you to show that you can easily transition to another team because you have a strong foundation of hard skills. And so I have a couple examples here as well. And again, like all within their own unique style of what their portfolio looked like. And the last slide is your contact slide. That will typically include your phone number, your email, and your LinkedIn URL. Those are kind of the only 3 things that you need. Some girls will put a photo on it. Some will not. It's totally up to you. This is what I recommend as the core of your portfolio. So I would have your title, your about section, your skills and certifications, and then the rest dedicated to your work experience, and making sure you organize it really clearly. So I have some takeaways here. You want to try to make sure that's no more than 10 slides. I've had people submit me portfolios that are 100 slides, like literally every single piece of work they've ever done. It's the average, not the sum of what you include. So you want to focus on including the best pieces of work that best exemplify what you can contribute to a team. You want to focus on visuals over words, focus on results. So if when you are including your descriptions of what you've done, focus on the result, the impact that you had. Think about simple design. Always ask yourself, if this was simple or if this was easy, what would it look like? We're very quick to just want to fill the page, but think about simplicity and clear organization and structure, because when someone's looking through it, they're likely just skimming through it and reading what catches their eye. So you want to make it really simple and clear for them to easily consume the information. All right, I'm going to go through and I'm going to show you another cool thing in Canva is you can actually build website portfolios. So I'm going to show you how to do that in Canva. Any questions on portfolios so far from that?
I do have a question, and you might get to this. But I'm a college student, and I've had internships and I've had jobs. But my biggest issue with building portfolios right now is I just feel like I don't have enough content to put in there. And I've done, school projects, and I just don't know what without having a full professional career, should include.
Yes, that's probably the number one reason why people feel like they can't make a portfolio. So there's a lot of different ways you can make experience on your own. My favorite one to do that I think is the easiest, and especially since I know a lot of you are typically interested in going into social media, is going and finding a social media account of a company that doesn't do social well. So I have this green drink in front of me. I would maybe look at this brand, I don't even know what it's pronounced, Koya. Go to their Instagram. If you think you can make it better, then go make if you're really good at Photoshop, you can do it in Photoshop. If you're not like me, you could just do it in Canva. But what I would do is I would screenshot their Instagram, and then I would go into Instagram. I would make a fake account, so a dummy account, and then go into Canva, design new photos, post a new grid feed, redo their description, redo their highlight reels, redo everything on a fake dummy account, and then screenshot it and then kind of show the before and after. So that's one project you could do of if I were social media manager for X company, this is the transformation. This is what the social media would look like under me. You could do the same thing with emails. You could go find an email in your inbox, and if it, you think it could be done better, screenshot it. You can go into a tool like MailChimp, a free email tool, design a new and better email, and then show the before and after and say, if I were the email marketing coordinator, or if I was in charge of email marketing, and this is what the emails would look like. I think those types of projects you could do on your own, and they can really showcase what you're capable of.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I have a quick question actually. I've been talking to a lot of people with my professor and also like some of like alumni who graduate before me, and they seems one of the common thing that they all seem to have is they have a website portfolio. So I kind of like get an understanding of like, oh, it's like important to have a portfolio showcase all of your work, but in the form of a website. So it's just like this is my first time seeing a portfolio in a Canva like PDF style like that. So I was just wondering, like, would you recommend building a website, or what is like, what are you thinking in terms of like website versus like Canva?
Really good question. So I like Canva portfolios because they are way easier to create than a website. So website portfolios take a lot more time. I will say for the longevity of your career, I think websites are better because you could add more to them, right? Really in Canva, 10 slides is like kind of your max. You do more, it's going to be too much. So when it comes to websites, I love Squarespace and Wix. I think they're the most user-friendly for building website portfolios. There are also some like other hacks. So I'll show you real quickly how you can make a website portfolio in Canva. But if you are choosing between the two, I would make a Canva first because that will allow you to have something, and it'll also allow you to organize your thoughts. That when you go build a website portfolio, you're not like designing and redesigning, and you also have something now to submit to employers as you apply to jobs, and then you could work on your website portfolio on the side. It just, in my experience, it takes just so long, but once you have it done, it is like, I think it's better in the long run because you could keep adding to it. It just takes a lot of time.
I see. Thank you. That make a lot of sense too. And I feel like Canva is something we kind of like familiar with compared to like building a whole website from scratch. So that's
Yeah.
a good one. Yeah. Thank you.
And let me show you guys really quick in Canva how you can build it. So if you search in Canva website, you could search portfolio website. And so I showed you those slides. You could literally create those slides, like I said, and then copy and paste them into a portfolio website here on Canva. They have a ton of templates like you could go through and take. And basically it builds it like a website. So let me go and add all these in. And you can see it'll allow you to like change like how big each of these pages are, but you build it just like you would build any design in Canva. You don't need any website skills. And then I'll show you a preview of what it looks like, but it looks just like a website. It even is has mobile optimization. Let's see. Oh, on the right. So it'll even adapt for mobile. So this is a hack that not a lot of people know about, that you can create a website portfolio and not actually have to build a website. It's on like preference. So unlike a real website, like doesn't really have like different pages, right? It's just a one-page website. So it's super basic. You can't make multiple pages like you would be able to make in Wix or Squarespace or WordPress, but it is a cool little hack that you could have a published website. It'll even allow you, so it'll give you like a free domain, but you could also purchase your own domain through Canva. So if you want it to be your fullname.com, you could also do that through Canva. So super cool feature. Not a lot of people know about it, but you can also build websites that way. Any other portfolio questions?
I have a question.
Mhm.
So I've made a few different websites for different clubs I'm a part of at school. So I'm just wondering if you have any advice on how to showcase websites you've made on a portfolio, since there are different web pages and stuff. It's kind of hard to fit all of it. So do you recommend just like putting the hyperlink on, or like a screenshot of a certain page?
Yeah, I'll show you. Let me out of this. I would find the laptop, like some type of laptop graphic, like maybe this one, for example. I'm just going to delete this. And I would put a screenshot of it, and then I would link out to it, because there's no way you're going to be able to fit everything. Or you could do multiple, like you could have, you could do like this, and then you could have like like an iPhone laying over it, and you could have like the desktop view and the mobile view, and then click like view design and have a link to view design, and then let them go actually view it and interact with it.
Okay, thank you so much.
I have a question.
Yes.
Somebody told me that they think is that you should have more than one portfolio according to the type of job that you're applying to. Do you think that's really necessary?
No. I think so when it comes to customizing application materials for specific jobs, you can easily get into like a trap of just spending so much time customizing it for each job. I think that if you maybe have a lot of experience, maybe you want to have a social media specific portfolio and like maybe a general marketing portfolio. If you really want to, you could do that. I've also heard of people like I once interviewed a guest on my podcast that worked at Pinterest, and when she applied, she made her portfolio in the entire Pinterest brand. And I've seen people do that on TikTok. Like I feel like when TikTok was hiring in the early days, people made TikTok resumes and TikTok portfolios. So I think that there are rare instances where if you are very, very passionate about a specific company and you really want to work there, and it is your like dream job, by all means, go all out, customize it, do all of the things. But I think for 99% of the jobs, it's not worth that effort. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
So when it comes to making our portfolios and seeing how creative each portfolio can be, how do we know when too much is too much, or if it's too little of creativity? Like how do we know it's just right for when we're applying to companies, especially if we just want like a 1 or 2 general portfolios?
You're talking about design wise?
Yeah.
So I think that it's important to be yourself and authentic when you're designing it. With that balancing and the fact that they're going to look at what you're designing and try and imagine that for their company. So they're going to say, oh, this is how she designs. Like, does that fit within our company? Like to an extent. So I've had it on the positive where I've had girls be like, yeah, they loved my portfolio design. And they said they wanted me to design stuff for social, just like my portfolio. So also just be mindful of that, of like, sometimes it's a little better to be a little bit more neutral because it kind of can increase or broaden, who you would appeal to.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And Dominique, you raised your hand.
Yes. So, my question is, okay, I've been in marketing and like the marketing space for over 10 years, but I don't have a degree in marketing. I've kind of just been doing freelance and doing my own thing. So if I'm applying to a bigger, company and the requirements are like, yeah, we want you to have a bachelor's degree or something of the other, you know, I do usually apply anyway, but I'm just curious to know if you think that sometimes that matters, or how can I make myself maybe stand out, to show like, okay, I do have the skills, even though I don't have, this degree.
Yes, degrees are a difficult one. I think that since COVID, companies are more open to accepting applicants that don't have traditional education. I think it's still worth applying to jobs that require a bachelor degree, but I know that some of the bigger companies, like it can be a hard requirement, unfortunately, although I'm a big believer that experience matters more. I think that the best way you could stand out is by showcasing your experience and really leaning into that on your portfolio and highlighting that on your LinkedIn profile. And there are a lot of companies that, that don't have that requirement. And so maybe focusing on first getting your foot in the door there. And then I think once you have that first job, everyone, all the others will come a lot easier. You'll grow your network, you'll get connections, you'll gain credibility from that first role, but definitely lean into your experience as your biggest asset.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna switch into another round of speed networking, and I have some icebreaker prompts to get you all started. This time we'll do 2 rounds, so I'll put you in for 5 minutes, bring you back, switch up your group, put you in for another 5 minutes. So for these 2 questions, you can talk with your group. Do you guys have a marketing portfolio? What was your experience like building one, or do you want to build one? And then how would you describe your aesthetic? So how would you describe your design aesthetic? Yeah, let's jump in. I'll put you in there. We'll recreate the rooms, and then I'll put you in there for about 5 minutes. All right, welcome back. It's gonna switch up the rooms and then put you back for another 5 minutes.
Natalie, I think your audio's dead.
I was muted. I'm sorry. I'm gonna take I'm gonna go into travel as our last segment for the event. Before I do, I want to take a picture of everybody while I have you all here, so we can all fix our hair, get all cute and ready. And I'm gonna take 1 screenshot of everybody and then 1 photo, because my desk setup is not the prettiest. So yeah, if anyone else wants to take a photo, go for it. Get everyone's camera on. Put myself in the middle here. Let me see if I can get everyone's names away. Okay, amazing. All right, 1, 2, 3. Amazing. Okay, and then we'll do one with I'm gonna take one on my phone now. Okay, 1 more. Gosh, my desk setup I have a big ring light in front of me, so it makes everything that I take just look not as great, but we'll take 1 more. 1, 2, 3. Okay, amazing. So we're going to talk about travel. So I'm going to go into that last segment. This is something that's personally very important to me, also along with our theme for today, which is Fly with Sky Society. I'm going to go through if you do have a remote job or you want to work remote one day, some of my tips for traveling remotely as a woman, and if you are alone, and some just cool hacks that I've learned. And then I'm also going to open it up to you guys to share any advice. Some of the Accelerator students had some cool tips that they were sharing. But I think it's something that I feel like we talk about remote work. It gives us all this flexibility. We are in this new era where we're not tied to our desks anymore, but I feel like a lot of us are stuck at our desks still. I know even me, I talk about wanting to travel more, but actually doing it is really hard. So we're going to jump in and talk about some of my favorite tips for traveling, specifically for being a digital nomad and working while traveling. So it is absolutely worth it. I feel like a lot of us, I think the number one reason why we don't do it is because I know, at least for me, it's hard to find other people that also want to travel while working remote, because not everybody has that flexibility. But you will find that it's often a lot more affordable than you anticipate it being, and it's a lot less scary than you think it is. You just kind of have to do your first trip, and then it gets a lot better. But especially while you're young, and a lot of us here are young, is that taking advantage of traveling right now is the best time, because we don't know what the future holds, and that it is absolutely worth taking a risk, going on a trip while working and just seeing what it's like and being able to experience new things. So the main thing I'm going to talk about today is Selena. This is not sponsored by them at all. Not at all. I've traveled with Selena and I absolutely love them, and no one really knows that they exist. So Selena is a co-working hostel. So it's meant for digital nomads, meaning it's meant specifically for people that want to travel and work. This is beautiful because it means that when you go here alone, you're going to meet. So when you go to a hostel, first of all, not all hostels are like this. This is like an aesthetic photo opportunity type hostel. If you go on their website and you look at their hostels, like they're gorgeous. Like your rooms are gorgeous. They have gorgeous pools. Like everything about them is very, very aesthetic. So that's what's very different about it as a hostel. Also, it's specifically for people that work. So when you go there, they'll see on the right here is this like co-working room. They have really good Wi-Fi. They have private rooms where you could go and take meetings. And you're also just going to meet people that are also working and have a similar lifestyle to you. So a lot of the other, like if you go to a normal hostel, oftentimes they're like very focused on like partying and the crowd is really young. But when you go to at least in my experience with Selena, is that the crowd is older. They all typically have jobs and they're there working. So you're around other people that are working too. So I've done it recently. I have someone that helps a lot with Sky Society in the background, and she is always doing trips like these. She's like always staying at Selena's and traveling all over the world, and she loves it. And she works for me and works entirely remote while traveling. And I just think it's such a cool opportunity. So if you have not heard of Selena, definitely look into it. Especially for traveling alone, I think that staying at a place like this is a really good way to meet people easily and make a lot of friends. So that way, even if you are going alone, you'll find people to be able to do things with. Just like for an idea, when like you can find, like if you did a shared bedroom at a Selena, you'd pay like $200 to $300 for an entire week would be your total stay. So like very, very, very affordable. So a couple of things to think about before you go and you plan a remote travel work trip. So the first, that it's okay to go alone. Hopefully you maybe can find someone here that also wants to travel and do it, but it is okay to go by yourself. I feel like that is the scariest part of all of it, is traveling alone. And obviously I think all of us as women, there's like a safety level to that too. So definitely don't need to go outside of your comfort zone, but I feel like we're very like trained societally that if you're going to go on a trip, you have to go with other people or else it's not cool. It's definitely cool to go alone, especially if you go to an environment like a Selena hostel. You're going to meet people. Other people travel alone. It's a super fun environment. So it is okay to go alone. You definitely, like, one of the things I started doing is just saying like, so I want to go to Costa Rica and work and do another work trip this year. And I just started like telling people about it. And a lot of people will say like, oh, that's really cool, I want to go. Not everybody will actually go, but sometimes if you just say it out loud, you may find people that would be interested in going in it too, that you may not have originally expected. So with that said, choosing your destination is your first goal. So the first thing to think about is time zone. I got invited to go to stay with a friend in the Philippines. And at first I was like, of course, that's amazing. And then I realized that the time zone difference would be like absolutely impossible for me to work. So think about your time zone. Think about cost of living and transportation. So what does the cost of food cost in that city? So I live in Austin. If I go to Mexico, it's very, very affordable. So my first Selena trip was in Mexico. I mean, the entire trip, my room was $300 total for an entire week. The food there was super cheap. It was very, very affordable for me to go and take that trip. Plus flights were really cheap. But looking at like how much it costs to live there, what does transportation look like? And then what does safety look like in the city that you're going? Like city specific to, and even through the hostels, like I read a lot of reviews on each of the hostels of like what the environment was like. But I think this part's really important. If it's your first trip, also go somewhere close. Depending on where you live, that may look different. If you live, like I'm in Texas, if you live like Texas, California, like any like Southern American country is typically a lot safer, right? It's a shorter trip. Maybe you've been there before. Be mindful of like travel safety warnings as well. Like I know we're going through like an interesting time, but these are just for like work wise. Think about your time zone, think about cost of living and the transportation of what it's like there, and then safety, of course. Booking your stay. So 3 things that I didn't know about when I was first booking for traveling while working is the first is Wi-Fi speed. So if you are looking at staying at a hostel or a new place, you can email them and say, can you send me your internet speed? If you are, unless you're staying at Selena's where Wi-Fi is good, like let's say you're going with a group of friends and you're staying at an Airbnb or you're staying at a hotel, don't be afraid to ask for them to send you the Wi-Fi speed, because if you don't have Wi-Fi, you cannot work. And you may get there all excited, like I'm gonna do all my meeting, it's gonna be great. And then you're gonna get there, and then the Wi-Fi is not gonna work, and you're gonna be really bummed that you're not gonna be able to work. So you can literally email them, ask them, can you send me a screenshot of your Wi-Fi speed? Very, very important. The second is, will you have a quiet place to work? So again, if you're staying at Selena's, you will have all of this, but if you're staying at a different hostel, if you're staying with friends, like where are you going to take your meetings? You need to take that into consideration. Will it be quiet? And if not, maybe investing in some noise canceling headphones. And then the last is distance to city. I used to get stuck in the travel trap of finding really cheap places to stay and then realizing that they were so far away from anything I ever wanted to do. So also keep that in mind. This on the left is like one of the, like, this is actually a Selena hostel thing. They like make interesting things like this, but you can also find like places that have cool experiences for you to stay at that are pretty cheap. Okay, once you're there, you've booked a trip, you made it there. Some tips for staying. Meeting people. So if you are traveling alone, one of the best ways I met people is just by sitting out in the common area. This like takes you back, like way back to college of like trying to make friends and meet new people. But if you just like hang out and you sit around, ask people about their plans, they're very often likely to say, we're doing this today, you should come with us. People in travel environment and mode are typically very friendly. I met people just in line for coffee and asking them what they're going to order, and that turns into a conversation and turns into us drinking coffee together and doing fun trips together. So just be there, be around, ask questions, get out of your room and try and meet people, because it makes it a lot more fun, especially for traveling alone. Then you can kind of find people and do cool excursions with them. And my last thing that I want to say here is enjoy yourself. So when doing trips like this, let's say you're going and you're planning on working, right? So you're taking advantage of remote work, you're going to work while you're there. First, like be okay with not having plans when you get there. I think being open to meeting people and being spontaneous is okay. Don't feel guilty for having fun. I've done trips before where I felt really guilty for like going to the beach on my lunch break, or for, you know, really, really enjoying it because I felt like I should be working or doing more. But like enjoy yourself, take the time, splurge on what matters to you. I've also been in the trap of like wanting to be very, very budget conscious and not wanting to spend money, but think about what matters to you. Some people, it's like spending money on food is a highlight. Some it's excursions, some it's, you know, upgrading your room or whatever it is. But I think that I talk about this a lot, but when you are very career driven and motivated, it's hard sometimes to like step back, take the time and do things that are purely for pleasure and for enjoyment. And I think that traveling while working remote is one of those things that we don't prioritize, because I feel like it's kind of, it's one of those things that's not necessarily necessary, but in my opinion is absolutely worth it. And I really wished I wish I do more of this and started doing this a lot earlier. So again, I encourage you all to look into Selena. I tell like everybody about it because I think it's such a cool experience. You can even see like some of their bunks are like super, super nice. I've stayed in the shared bunk. I think it's also a good way to meet people, but their private rooms are also super cheap. And they even have co-living options where, let's say you wanted to like pack up your apartment and travel, you could do co-living with Selena where you pay like a flat fee every month and you get to stay at whatever hostels you want, and you can just hostel hop. And they have hostels all over the world. So they have cool co-living options like that. There's definitely other co-working hostels other than Selena. This is just the biggest one, but I really encourage you all to travel more. I don't have a ton more travel tips, but I'll stop here. Does anyone else have any like travel tips or advice they want to share? Jane.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jane. I work remotely, and I've been working remotely since my company went fully remote about 2 years ago. And I'm lucky enough to have my husband also work remotely, so sometimes I'll travel with him. But I've been doing a lot of solo female travel lately. I'm 23, and this was like my first time was when I was like 21. And at first it was incredibly scary, but I want to say not only I love all the tips that you have, and I too want to just like encourage people to, if you hear something, like always try to experience it for yourself or form your own judgment of it, right? Like everyone has their own comfort zone. I've been to Mexico about 3 times. I actually just came back from San Miguel de Allende. I don't actually drive. I'm from New York City, so sometimes I feel like I'm at a loss when I go to these places. But it solo travel really helps you feel more confident in yourself. And every time I come back from a trip, I feel like I'm a more solid version of myself, or like there's something I knew I've learned about myself, or like I can take on a situation now and be like, okay, you know what, I'm capable. I'm able to do this because I've like solo traveled before and I've been able to handle situations. I make a lot of content about like solo female travel, and I find like spots that have one, really great Wi-Fi, and are two, very comfortable. So if it's okay, Natalie, can I share like my TikTok and Instagram?
Of course, yeah, put that in the chat.
Yeah, I would love to, if anyone has any like experiences they want to share. I'm on TikTok and Instagram, and I'm just trying to find a community of women who also love to solo travel or just travel in general.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm definitely not the expert, so definitely go check out Jane. I just like this.
No, I don't think so either.
This is something new that I've done, and I just like definitely something that, like what you said, I think it definitely makes you more confident in yourself, and it's just, I feel like fear is the number one reason why people don't do it as often as they want to. And so hopefully like today you get a little bit more inspired to push past that fear boundary.
Yeah, and fear is real too. Sometimes I'm a realist. Like it's really good to also be aware, like, right, if we as women have certain things that we're not willing to do, and that's totally fine too. I'll say that there's always like little tips and tricks I'll have. Like I'll text someone. I'll make sure that like I'll scope out like a taxi company. I'll like check with my hotel owner first before I take a taxi there. I work for Lyft, the rideshare company too. So like, luckily enough, I sometimes am able to use rideshare in certain places. So yeah, if anyone wants to chat like offline or outside of the event, I'm like I love this topic. So thanks, Natalie, for bringing this up and giving me the space to talk about it too.
Of course, thank you.
I wanted to pop in really quick and say I'll probably be reaching out to you. I'm looking for remote work, or I mean, I'm based in Houston, looking at maybe possibly moving to Austin, but also looking at remote, and I want to incorporate traveling. So I honestly will probably DM you at some point, Jane, if you don't mind, and with some questions as they come up. But I really appreciate you bringing that up, because that's like exactly like where I'm headed. So.
Oh my gosh, yes, please ask me questions. I love that.
Yeah, Sky Society girls should do a little travel trip together. I feel like that would be really fun. If you guys do, loop me in. All right, any other thoughts, comments, questions on travel?
I have a question. So is it possible to get these kind of remote jobs without much work experience, like entry level? Because I'm not sure if it's just me, but I feel like from what I've seen, it usually requires more years of experience than what I have for remote jobs.
Good question. So I would say, and like there's just competition across the board when it comes to entry-level marketing jobs. If you're in the LinkedIn group, you see lots of girls that are all going through something similar. So I don't think remote jobs are any more competitive than in-person jobs in general. I just think that different companies have different requirements on whether or not they want their employees in office or remote. I think that there's definitely more remote jobs than there are probably in-person jobs in your city, just because when you search for remote jobs, you open it up to the entire country. You're just going to have a much larger pool to apply to. But yeah, I mean, entry-level jobs just in general in marketing are going to be really competitive. But I don't necessarily think that remote ones are significantly more competitive than in-person roles.
I have a question with finding, I guess, remote jobs. Like on LinkedIn, I feel like it's somewhat hard, because I feel like a lot of the jobs still are like, say, like in a location, and then you maybe find out later that could be a remote job. So I guess it's like hard for me to like find where the remote jobs are, or how that actually works.
Yeah, and sometimes companies will say remote, and then you'll interview, and then they'll be like, actually, we want you to be in person, or like, we want you to be close to the office. So it's definitely hard, because all we really have are LinkedIn filters, right? And LinkedIn filters are only as good as the people that are posting the jobs and being accurate about them. So the easiest way is to filter on LinkedIn by remote jobs, but you definitely run into the risk of a company saying that it's remote when it's not. I think that they're typically pretty good of like, if they like if they're setting their location as their city, it's likely for a reason. It's likely because they want to hire someone from that city, even if it's remote. Some companies like the idea of having someone like, so you can like meet in the office, you can do work together. I know that like like in Austin, for example, there are companies that they're not headquartered here, but their team is here, or they have like hubs. So yeah, it's tough, but the best filter you could do is the LinkedIn filter when you're searching for jobs and searching specifically for remote roles.
I can also chime in to answer your question. When I was interviewing for my current position that I had, it was based in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I am based in Atlanta, so opposite ends of the states. And when they offered me the position, I was able to negotiate with them that I wanted a fully remote position, and they agreed. So I don't know if like all companies operate that way, but if they really do like you and you put on a really great impression, like that is totally negotiable for a lot of companies.
Yeah, that's such a good point too. There's definitely flexibility if they really like you. Or sometimes I've even had companies say, well, sometimes it'll like they'll start in person, and then once they trust you more, then it'll move to remote roles. I've seen different variations of that, but yeah, if they love you, then they'll typically find a way to make it happen. Wow.
Quick question.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Very quick question. Like, thank you so much for sharing a lot of like tips on what you do and like how we can get there for traveling. But I also wondering like, how would you communicate with employer when we're working remotely on like, should we tell them that, oh, we going here and there? Because I feel like sometimes like they would have that kind of impression. One of the reason I wanted to know this is because last summer I had my internship. It was like fully remote. So we did like road trip along the way. My office was like all the way in Cleveland. We go all the way down to New Orleans and experiencing. But I just feel really bad. I'm not sure how to tell that to my employer, so I kind of like keep it away. Even like during our chit chat thing, she was like, "How's New York?" I was like, "Oh yeah, it's great. It's sunny." I just feel really bad, so I just don't know like how to opening up. Like, is it a bad thing, or like how should we communicate that to employer?
So it's so funny you say that. So when I stayed at my last trip at Selena, there were people that they're like, yeah, my company doesn't allow travel. They don't know I'm like, I met one guy, he literally like doesn't even have an apartment. All he does is travel, and his company thinks he's based in LA. He has not been in LA in like 6 months. So much so that he literally has changed his IP address to like reroute like all of this crazy stuff to make his company think that he's in LA when he's like literally out here living it up. So my thoughts. I always prioritize like being honest. That's just me, because like you, I would feel very uncomfortable. And so, but at the same time, I know like sometimes you're afraid to say something because you're afraid they're going to say no, right? It's like ask for forgiveness, not permission type of thing. Like if I don't say anything, then they can't tell me I can't do it. But if I bring it up, then they can say, actually, we don't want you traveling. The biggest reason why employers typically don't want you traveling is because if you travel for an extended period of time, there's tax implications that could get messy with you not being where you're supposed to be. So that is typically the main reason why they don't want you to travel so much. I'm not an expert in that area, but depending on like how close you are, I always think it's like best, especially if you're going to post it on social media and you want to talk about it. But again, there are people like that guy that I met that he's like, yeah, they told me I couldn't travel anymore. So I just changed. Like, I mean, he's crazy. He like changed his IP address and everything and was doing all this. So yeah, it depends on kind of on your company's rules. And then I know it gets a little bit more complicated if you do extended travel, because then that changes your tax implications.
I see. Yeah, it was more like a 1 week trip thing of like getaway. So I'm pretty sure like, it should be fine. Like people go on like holiday and vacation a lot, but I think it's just for me, it's just like feel kind of guilty of like people is like chilling in the office and I'm chilling on the beach.
I think it's a cool thing. Like I think it's also a conversation starter, like getting close with your employees. Like it's when you jump in a meeting, it's like, hey, I'm in like so and so. Like, but yeah, it definitely depends on your work culture and your work environment if that's something that they would value and respect.
So I have two questions. So follow-up question for that would be, so then should you tell them like, hey, I have this trip planned, I'll be gone for a week, or should you not?
So if it were me, I would, because again, like I just like I know I'm gonna probably post it on Instagram. Like I don't want to have to like hide it or like tell white lies. Like that's gonna make me feel very uncomfortable. Also, if you use a work laptop, they can know. I mean, if they monitor it and you're using a work laptop, they can also know if they look into it that you were not where you said you were going to be. If you're within the States, it's probably not a big deal, but I definitely don't think there's a harm, especially maybe like you want to be like, hey, I'm going to go to Mexico for a week. I'm going to work every day, but I'm going to take Friday off. Like, I'm sure that like that's something that most companies will be okay with. You could also like ask your boss before you plan the trip, like, hey, like what is the company's policy around like traveling while working remote? I'm like potentially trying to plan a couple trips, and you can kind of like test the waters to see what their viewpoint on is. But like kind of what that was saying is like you don't really want to feel guilty, right? Or like feel like you're hiding something. And so for the most part, employers are okay with it, and it's typically not an issue. I just know of like rare instances where it can become an issue. I mean, with that example I told you, this guy was just like traveling a ton, so it was becoming an issue with it. But as long as you're getting your work done and you prove to them that you're just as effective in another country as you are when you're at home, then it shouldn't be an issue.
Okay, thank you. My second question is, so it's not really related to traveling, but with like an incoming recession going on and like thousands of layoffs happening, how long do you think it'll take to find like an entry-level marketing job like right now?
I cannot answer that for you. It's so different for everybody. It depends on your experience level. It depends on the types of jobs that you're applying to. So I'm very hesitant. I've talked to girls. Obviously, we have the accelerator. By the time they apply, they've been looking for jobs for 6 months. I have girls that are looking for 12 months. I have seen it all. If it's taking you a long time, just the one thing I could tell you is that you're not alone in it. It is really hard for everybody. There's not anything wrong with you. It's just hard. And so really try not to give up and keep going, build a marketing portfolio, work on accumulating more experience. And yeah, it's definitely, there's factors at play that are outside of you. Like you mentioned, the economy, the layoffs, those things are not your fault and are not a reflection on you at all.
Okay, thank you. So then how many jobs do you recommend we apply to like a week?
I like 15 to 20 jobs. I feel like people who apply to way more get burnt out a lot. So that's typically like my sweet spot that I would recommend.
Okay, thank you.
I had trouble finding a job for like pretty much a year after I graduated college. It was really horrible. But what I found is that you really need to just like leverage your network. And I'm not meaning like, oh, like, well, I don't know that many people in marketing. Just anyone, just like, don't be ashamed to like bring it up with people, because like, especially like people who have been through it, like they know like how tough it is to get started. So if you're really like, oh my gosh, like I'm nervous to, put myself out there, just like literally don't be, because like everyone understands. And so like talk to anybody and everybody, because you never know who will be like, oh yeah, like I'll keep an eye out. And you're like, oh really? Like you will? Like I've had people be like, oh yeah, I'll ask my boss if they know of a good job. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think they would do that. So you just never know who's going to be able to help you.
Thank you.
Is it okay if I add to that for just a second? Because Samantha and I were in a group earlier. Or I don't know if you asked the question, I'm sorry, but I worked for a company called Eternova, and I didn't have a job from after college for a year and a half. So I had to market myself some way. So I don't want to say I stalked them on socials, but anything they posted online, I was like, this is so useful. This is so cool. I found them on YouTube. It just kind of worked out whenever they were looking to hire somebody, because they knew who I was. So I ended up getting the job, but I just connected with them on social media as much as possible. So if you're going for a company that has a big social presence, or maybe a small social presence, just try to be their audience first and say like, hey, this is really cool, or repost their stuff. And I mean, that worked for me. So that's just another way to network if you don't actually know them.
Okay, thank you.
I've heard examples of that too, of people like emailing every single day. Like, you can be very persistent, and I think that's one way of standing out.
I have
Okay,
a question.
Yeah, we got one more question, and then we're up on time here.
Okay, so I don't have much I don't have any paid experience. I have just like free experience. And one of the things I was putting on my resume is that I'm trying to figure out how to put on my resume and in my portfolio, is that I've done content creation for certain brands on my own personal micro influencer account. It's not like a branded, it's, you know what I mean? Like, it's not really, like, it's for my own personal account, but it is content creation and it is work. So should I be putting that on my portfolio and resume, that I've done these things for these brands? Like, some of them are kind of like, they're really well-known brands. So should I put them? And if I should, how should I put them as my experience, like in a professional way?
I would absolutely put them. You don't need to say whether it was paid or not. For all they know, you got paid for that collaboration. They don't need to know that you didn't get paid. I would definitely still put it, and I would put it under like UGC, and show that your content creation ability, and use it as a way to show companies that I can create high quality content for you too. So absolutely, that's awesome experience that you have there.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, we are up on time. Thank you again for attending. Again, my name is Natalie, and a huge shout out to our Accelerator graduates for helping put this together. I appreciate all of you, and thank you so much for coming, spending time. Hopefully you got to make some meaningful connections, meet a travel buddy potentially. We're choosing one of our attendees to win a little travel package. So we will be emailing that to you tomorrow along with the recap. I will include the slides. I have copied Jane's Insta, so I'll put that in there too. I'll include the slides, some portfolio templates, and all the goodies. So thank you again for coming to the event. I'm very thankful to have all of you within the Sky Society community.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, thank
Thank
you.
you. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.